Oh, hi there everyone, it's Linda here from Just for Tummies. I hope you can all see me and you can hear me. If you can't, just let me know in the comments section. So welcome to our live this evening. If you remember, those who watched my live in April during IBS Awareness Month, I asked you what topics you would like us to discuss in future lives. And some of you said, oh, something about menopause, please, and why, since I started going through peri and menopause, why have I suddenly started to suffer with bloating and constipation and acid reflux? So I listened to you, and and this live is all about how the change in hormones during menopause can have a detrimental impact on your digestive and gut health. And joining me this evening is the Just for Tummies nutritional therapist, Sophia Hill. And Sophia is going to be joining us in a moment. So we do have a free download this evening. So if you'd like the download, then all you need to do is request it and we will send it to you automatically in Messenger. Right, so without further ado, I am going to welcome Sophia Hill onto the live, and Sophia is going to tell us a little bit about herself and her story, why she became a nutritional therapist, why she does what she does, why she loves doing what she does, and without further ado,
Hi Linda.
Hi Sophia, welcome to the Just for Tummies live menopause and gut health event this evening.
Thank you, it's lovely to be here.
It certainly is, and I think we're going to be oh hi, I'm just going to welcome a few people if you don't mind.
Sure, yeah.
When I'm doing lives, I love to know where people are, where they're from, where they live.
I know,
I'm just reading a few comments now. I don't know if you can see these comments actually, Sophia, but we've got someone from Edinburgh. Hi Claire from Edinburgh, and I'm sure, oh hi Louise Burns, I know Louise is up in Yorkshire. Anyway, let's go off as a tangent. Sophie, because I can often do that. Sophia, you help me out greatly on Just for Tummies. You're a wonderful asset to the company.
Oh, thank you.
I just want you to tell people who you are, what you do, why you do what you do, why you love doing what you do. And yes, it would be good to have a little bit of your background story, please.
Of course, yeah. So I am Sophia Hill from Sophia Hill Nutrition is my business name if you want to find me on Instagram or anything. My journey actually started out with my own gut health issues. So had a lot of antibiotics as a child for, numerous tonsillitis infections and things. Little did I know at the time that this was going to set me up for an IBS diagnosis when I was about 14 or something. Mm-hmm. So, I was told from the doctors, there's nothing that you can do. You've got to just live with these symptoms. And I wasn't prepared, at that age to have to accept this. And I thought, surely it came from somewhere and I can get rid of it somehow if I can get to why it happened in the first place. Mm-hmm. And that really sparked me to go on this journey of, experimenting with different foods, and soon realized that a lot of things did have an impact on it. The things that the doctors said wouldn't, like diet won't help, nothing will help you. Mm-hmm. So I very quickly became passionate about this and decided to do a Bachelor of Science in Nutrition at the University of Nottingham. So I completed that, and that left me even more hungry for more knowledge, and I really wanted to go down a more holistic route. So I then went and did a course, a diploma in nutritional therapy at the College of Naturopathic Medicine, and thoroughly enjoyed the gut health modules and learnt so much and managed to transform my own health, particularly from doing that course and just learning so much about functional testings that you can do for getting to that root cause. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so I then set up my clinic after I'd finished my diploma, which was another 3 years, and really, really specialised heavily within gut health because, as Hippocrates said, Linda, all disease begins with the gut. So even if someone comes to me for something like a hormonal issue, as we'll go on to in a bit, there's often a gut element to it. Autoimmune diseases, gut element, skin issues, gut element, mental health issues, there can be a gut element. So I think that's why I am so passionate about it, because it really has such an effect on other areas of our health. And also, I really don't want people to have to go through the sort of painstaking journey I went down through the NHS route. You know, the NHS is brilliant for certain things, but in my experience, I didn't feel heard or, you know, helped with my IBS.
Well, in my experience, sorry for just interrupting, Sophie, but in my experience, I found over the years that once the NHS, once your GP and the gastros have kind of made sure that there's nothing sinister causing the symptoms, they're not quite sure what to do with you other than prescribe medication or the FODMAP diet or refer you to one of the talking therapies. And as you said a few minutes ago, and I say this often, if someone tells you that you have IBS and you have to learn to live with it, I say get a second opinion, because that's completely not true. But before we go off at another tangent and talk about IBS, because we can talk for hours about IBS, can't we? What causes it and what helps resolve it. Can you just explain to people who have joined us this evening what the connection is between the menopause and that change in hormones and how they can detrimentally impact digestive and gut health?
Yeah, so what I think might be useful is if we kind of look at some of the functions of some of the sex hormones, because we can then start to see where, for example, in perimenopause, we've got levels of hormones that are rising and falling unevenly, very unpredictable. Whereas when we're sort of menstruating, we have the cycle that should usually be very sort of predictable throughout the month. Perimenopause, it's all over the place. So we've got this dysregulated hormone levels within the body, and understanding what the function of the hormones can do can help us to understand how and why that can impact the gut health. So if we start with estrogen, well, estrogen is responsible for increasing serotonin. That's implicated in gut motility. As we know, a lot of the serotonin is actually produced in our guts, and also obviously it affects our mood as well. So if we've got dipping levels in that and we've got gut motility issues, then people can often end up constipated one day. They may then also experience some diarrhea if this motility is up and down throughout this perimenopausal time. So it does have that function on gut motility. Also affects bile production. So without the correct bile production, we can suffer from fat malabsorption, which can result in bloating. Bile is actually also a natural antimicrobial. So it actually helps to keep those areas nice and sterile. So without the correct levels, we are then prone to more infections in the gut, like, say, a SIBO infection, which then could then go on to cause you all these bloating symptoms, constipation. So possibly people of that sort of age may be at higher risk of something like a SIBO infection. When we start to look at gut motility being affected, bile secretion is affected, serotonin levels may be affected
I know,
as well.
Sorry, Sophie, I know you sometimes talk about the migrating motor complex as well in the small intestine in particular, and how this can be affected certainly by small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. But can the menopause also affect that migrating motor complex? So that may be responsible for, like I call it, a confused bowel, where 1 minute you're constipated and then you're having to dash off to the loo because you've got diarrhea.
So if we think about that serotonin production, well, one of the things that regulates the migrating motor complex is serotonin. So for someone who's got SIBO, for example, and we've cleared it, then we go on to a prokinetic to encourage the migrating motor complex to work again. Well, a lot of them have got 5-HTP in them, which is the precursor to serotonin, for that reason, because it helps to stimulate the MMC. So yes, that could be a factor for sure. We also have to think about, if we've got lower levels of estrogen, this can drive higher levels of cortisol, which is our stress hormone. And the stress hormone can be quite a big one for people who are perimenopausal, because high cortisol, again, that can affect transit time. It also can shut down stomach acid production. So if we're not producing the correct amount of stomach acid, I mean, if we're in that fight or flight response, that sympathetic nervous system, our stomach acid is suppressed. All of our blood flow is diverted away from our gut to our muscles, so we can run away from the perceived threat. Then our digestive system is not getting a look in there. So really encouraging not to be in that fight or flight state is really, really going to be important at regulating transit time, keeping our stomach acid at the correct levels as well. Obviously, we can do that by trying to support estrogen, but also trying to support the adrenal glands as well. And after the ovaries have stopped producing estrogen, the adrenal glands are the last sort of gland that are there to produce the last little bit. So if you have had a very stressful lead up to your menopause or perimenopausal stage, your adrenals, if they're overworked and you're suffering with some adrenal fatigue, you'll be producing even less estrogen from the reserves there, because your adrenal glands are not up to the job, essentially. So looking after your health even before perimenopause in terms of stress management is also one of the things I would really highly recommend.
Well, I can certainly see myself in what you've just explained, Sophia, because I think I've said to you before that, I ran a very busy digestive and gut health clinic, and then I decided to develop, the Just for Tummies range of supplements. And it was at that time that I was kind of in the middle of my menopause, and everything was pretty much fine. I was coping okay with the menopause. Okay, I had some hot flushes, always made worse by alcohol, especially red wine. So I kind of knocked that on the head. But I think, I don't think I know that the stress I put myself under, still running the clinic and developing the Just for Tummies range and working 7 days a week, very long hours, certainly put my adrenals under a lot of stress. Yes. I slapped my wrist because I should know better, but I just knew at that time I just had to focus and get through that particular period. In my life. So I'm just going to have a look at a few questions before we continue.
Of course.
Nikki is having issues with the signal. It keeps freezing. Nikki, that might be your Wi-Fi. Let's see if anyone else is having any
Hopefully
problems.
Not ours.
No, everything seems to be okay. I'm really sorry about that, Nikki. But Nikki, you can watch this at a later date, because it will be on the Just for Tummies website, and we will also be sharing it on the Just for Tummies Instagram, IGTV, and it will be sent out in a newsletter as well. So don't worry if you can't watch it all this evening. Right, did you want to say anything else, Sophia, about the connection between the decrease in hormones and digestive and gut issues?
One of the other ones I did just want to quickly mention is that estrogen is also involved in the regulation of osmosis. So if you've got an imbalance of estrogen and progesterone, then this can cause water retention and bloating. So the point is that sometimes it's not actually always a gut issue necessarily. It could be that you're suffering with that, water retention, and you're holding on to too much water, and that's giving you that bloated feeling. So that's another way that estrogen can impact sort of kind of gut health, but more from a bloating point of view.
Okay, so when you say bloating, I mean, are you just talking about abdominal bloating, or are you talking about kind of water retention in the whole body? So, you just feel like a blob.
More the blob. So it can be.
That's interesting.
That your rings are tight and things, because your whole body is holding on to more water because of that osmosis effect of the estrogen. So that's another one to bear in mind. If it's not, the gut that's causing the bloating, there's also that to consider. So making sure you're not dehydrated, because that will worsen the problem.
Okay, that's great, thanks. Right, so I just want to say, for those of you that have just joined, welcome to our live this evening with me, Linda, from Just for Tummies, and Sophia Hill from Sophia Hill Nutrition, our nutritional therapist. And tonight we're talking about the link between the menopause and the change in hormones, and how these can increase your risk of getting digestive and gut issues, in particular bloating, constipation, acid reflux, but much, much more. Those pesky hormones have a lot to answer for. If you want our menopause and gut health guide, just request it in comments and we will send it to you in Messenger automatically. Right, so we have got a few questions, Sophia, that people have already emailed to me. So
great.
Can we go through a few, and then there may be a few more still in comments.
Yeah.
Let's have a look. Kay's raised a good question. I'm going to put it on the screen, okay, so everyone else can see it. Right. No. That's the wrong one. The problem is I'm getting so many messages at the moment that it's difficult to keep track of them. So let me see if I can get this one again. Just bear with me a moment. Right. So I've got this one from Megan.
Right.
Right. So Megan. Hi, Megan. Thanks for joining us. It's lovely to have you here. And so Megan has a major issue with yeast, long-term antibiotics for chronic infections. Any link with my menopause? I don't suffer with IBS or bloating. So Megan, I'm not sure if you're asking, is the menopause causing your yeast problem? Is that what you're asking? Because certainly long-term use of antibiotics will certainly cause a yeast problem.
Yeah.
So if you want to just expand on that a little bit, Sophia.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't quite know exactly what the question was asking. Whether the yeast infection was maybe worsening the menopause symptoms. If you want to comment on what the symptoms are, if you don't have any IBS or bloating, was it just worsening of other menopause symptoms that you're referring to? But I would say that having a yeast infection, it's not going to help anything, to be honest, whether it's menopause, if you've got that yeast infection that's dampening your immune system, it's straining quite a lot of systems on your body, then the menopause is likely to be a lot worse. The better state you are to go into the menopause in terms of your gut health, the absolute better, because it's not only hormones that impact our gut health also impacts our hormones through our estrobolome, which is a collection of bacteria in the gut that help they do detoxify and process our estrogen. So if we've not got the right balance of those bacteria in the gut, we're going to find it a lot more difficult to get rid of sources of estrogen, and then we can lead to more hormonal imbalances. With hormones, we want to use it and lose it. We want to use them as they need to be used and processed effectively, and then we want to get rid of them. We don't want them recirculating around the body. So if you go into menopause with a yeast infection, you've likely got gut dysbiosis going on. You're likely going to have a disruption to that estrobolome, which is going to affect how you process hormones. So I hope I've kind of understood your question right.
Megan, if we haven't answered the question for you, you can contact me via Messenger, and then I can put you in touch with Sophia, and she can help you further on that. Okay. So, I mean, certainly then, from a therapist viewpoint, and certainly, having developed Just for Tummies, the supplements, I would advise any woman who is going into perimenopause to, even before then, actually, Sophia, even before then, to start thinking about taking care of her gut, looking at her food, looking at her lifestyle, looking at you know, and I would recommend probiotics, live bacteria, certainly, 1-2 a day before meals. But can you tell me as well the impact that the liver has on the menopause, and if the liver is not functioning properly, if it's not detoxing, you know, if the liver's detox pathways are impaired in any way, how that can make menopause symptoms worse?
Yeah, of course. So again, like the gut and having that estrogen alone, we do need the liver to be functioning properly to process the hormones as well. So our hormones are processed, or can be processed, especially estrogen, down a variety of different pathways in our liver. So we've got the 2-hydroxy estrogen pathway, 4-hydroxy, and 16. And depending on which pathway your liver is shunting your estrogen down, may predispose you to a variety of things. Even, you know, certain hormone dominant cancers are linked to people who are processing their estrogen down the more harmful 4-hydroxy estrone pathway.
Okay, so what would these hormone cancers, are we talking about breast cancer?
Yeah, so okay. Hormone dominant cancers like breast cancer, endometrial cancer, ovarian cancer, and even in men as well, prostate cancer can have a hormonal element to it as well.
Yes.
So the liver needs to be working optimally. You need to be kind of having the correct diet to support those liver pathways for working optimally and processing that estrogen. And that's where the gut comes in as well. If you're really constipated and your gut is then reabsorbing those hormones via your portal vein back to the liver, then you're going to be having to doubly process them, and they might be recirculated around the body.
And that must be exhausting for the body to be doing that as well.
Definitely. So I always
sorry.
So
you would certainly recommend supplements like milk thistle to help support the liver?
Yes, I was just going to say milk thistle is one of my absolute go-to supplements for supporting the liver, supporting those pathways. You know, things like nettles and other liver supporting foods can be quite good, or in teas and dandelion, you can get those kind of herbs. So herbs can be excellent for supporting those pathways.
They're the bitter herbs, aren't they?
Yeah.
The bitter ones that stimulate digestion as well.
Yeah, and things like cruciferous vegetables like broccoli and cauliflower, they contain something called indole 3-carbinol, which really helps for your body to reduce the levels of beta-glucuronidase, which can cause a hormonal imbalance, and help them to be processed down that correct pathway in the liver. If you are interested...
Sorry. There's so much to say, isn't there?
I know.
You know, we have to finish about 5 to 9, but... And am I right in thinking that these foods that you've just mentioned, like cauliflower, broccoli, these are kind of like anti-cancer foods as well? There's been research carried out on these particular foods?
Yeah, they are. So they contain sulforaphanes, which are potent anti-cancer foods. So excellent to have in the diet for gut health, for anti-cancer kind of foods, for hormone support, for so many different things. And a lot of people have gut issues. Avoid those foods because they're higher in FODMAPs, which is a real shame.
It makes them gassy and bloated, yes.
Can do, yeah. So it's a real shame that they're not getting those really good benefits from those foods for hormones and things.
Right, okay, that's great. So just like to say hello and welcome everyone. I hope you're enjoying this live with Sophia and myself this evening. If you've got any specific questions, please comment, and we'll try and get through as many as we can. Those that we can't get through this evening, we will get back to you, so don't worry, every question will be answered. So Sophia, I've also wondered, do you come across women finding they're getting food intolerances during perimenopause? Yes, are food intolerances common during perimenopause? And if so, why? I think I know why.
I would say that, yeah, it does seem to be more common that people start to be reacting to foods. Often it's more of a sign that something else is going on, though. Food is rarely the enemy, in my experience. There's usually
I totally agree. I totally agree with you there, Sophia.
Yeah, it's usually something deeper that's causing the reaction to the food, not the food itself. So it really needs some investigation as to what is causing those food intolerances. Have you got SIBO, and that's why you're reacting to the foods, or something along those lines. But also, if you're, like, we go back to, if you're not producing enough stomach acid.
Yes, I was just about to say that. Yes,
you may feel like you're not tolerating foods, but actually you're just lacking things like digestive enzymes. So another great supplement to put in there, digestive enzymes with your meals, which will really help to break down the foods, and you'll often find you tolerate the foods a lot better that way.
And so many women contact me, Sophia, who are going through the menopause, and they've suddenly developed acid reflux, or indigestion, or they're burping all the time, and bloating, and they just can't understand why. And until I explain to them, what happens if they have got a reduction in stomach acid, and of course if they're also taking a proton pump inhibitor, the drug that kind of puts stomach acid to almost zero.
Yeah.
So that can also cause gassy bloating and acid reflux. Which is a bit of a conundrum, because the reason they were probably put on the PPI was because they had acid reflux. It doesn't work for everyone though, does it?
No, it's a vicious cycle, that one, for sure. So yeah, again, digestive enzymes can be really helpful for that reflux, and especially one that's got some hydrochloric acid in, which I think yours do, Linda.
Yes,
to help to correct those stomach acid levels.
Yeah, I have so many lovely reports and testimonials from women who have found that just taking the live bacteria and digestive enzymes has, resolved their acid reflux, their bloating, the cramps, and have also helped to regularize their bowel movements.
Yeah, they're really powerful.
They are, yes. I mean, I've been taking them, every day for many, many years. Although I don't have any digestive problems, but then I take probiotics.
That's probably why.
As well. Yes, and I take omega-3s as well, of course. So let's have a look then. More questions. Yes, since I began my menopause, my bowels have slowed down and I now get constipation, something I've never had before. Why is this? Well, I think you've kind of covered that earlier, didn't you, Sophia? So if you can just go over that with the migrating motor complex and how hormones can slow down transit time.
Yeah, so we did mention earlier, but in case you missed the first part, we were talking about how estrogen and the fluctuating levels in perimenopause can actually affect our serotonin levels, which is implicated in gut motility. So if your gut motility is slowed right down, you will be constipated. If your gut motility is slowed down because of having excess cortisol from stress levels, you will have constipation. So really supporting that gut transit time, upping the fibre intake. If you find you're not hitting that fibre goal of 30 grams a day, a fibre supplement can be really helpful, so that you can keep track of it better that way. Obviously making sure that you're very well hydrated as well, and some magnesium glycinate or citrate can be extremely beneficial for helping to shift things along and speed up that motility as well there.
Yes, in a gentle way with the magnesium. Yeah.
Yes.
I think it depends just how chronically lazy the bowel can be, but I know that magnesium can be very useful. I'm just going to bring a question up on the screen from Sally Miller. Hi, Sally. Thanks very much for your question. It's a really, really good one. So, Sally, do you advise hormone testing after the menopause to see if I would benefit from HRT? I mean, I think you do hormone testing, don't you, Sophia, for your clients? I know you do lots of testing.
I do. Yes, I do, and I love the hormone testing. The one I do differs slightly. Well, the one I predominantly do differs slightly from the ones you might get at the doctor. So doctors will do a blood test and check for your circulating estrogen. However, the test I do is called a Dutch test, and it's testing your dried urine. So it's looking at just what we've spoken about. How has your liver processed your estrogen, and which pathway has it gone down? And it actually shows you 2 and 4 and 16 hydroxy estrogen pathways, and shows you if you've got a favor of one pathway within your liver, and if so, how can we support that? So the Dutch test is one of my favourites, and it will tell us, the balance of estrogen to progesterone. It will look at testosterone, cortisol levels. So we've got the whole picture. So, if it's that your progesterone is a bit too low in comparison to the estrogen, maybe HRT, or a different type of HRT might be better, or you may want to try a natural route. So yeah, I absolutely love looking at those tests that show you how the estrogen's been processed.
I've just had a thought as well, Sophia. I get lots of enquiries from women who have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So, I mean, if they have a fatty liver and then they are beginning to go into the menopause, then surely that can potentially make their menopause, more of a challenging one. Because the liver's full of fat, so it can't do its job properly.
And in that state, you're in a highly inflamed state with the liver being, full of fat. That creates a lot of excess inflammation in the body. And if you add a high load of inflammation into someone who's already got lots of inflammatory symptoms going on, then it will be worse. Yeah, definitely. So things that are anti-inflammatory, like omega-3s, are excellent for that kind of thing, and for combating something like non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So yeah, I would consider that kind of approach.
Mm-hmm. Right, so we've got some more questions here.
Okay.
Right, so from Michelle. Hi, Michelle. Thanks for joining us this evening. So, Michelle, how would I find out if I had low or high amounts of acid? I think Michelle is meaning stomach acid.
Yeah, so you can, just generally speaking, our stomach acid levels do decline as we age. So the fact that the majority of people who are on PPIs are actually older people doesn't make that much sense, because if they did have high stomach acid, then surely it would be the younger people who have the higher levels of acid who had the issues. Anyway,
yes, that's a topic for another
story. Yeah, it is. But just to kind of set the scene that the older you get, the more decline you do have in stomach acid anyway.
Yeah.
If you're highly stressed out person, your stomach acid will be lower.
Mm-hmm.
If you lack the cofactors in creating stomach acid, it will be lower. If you don't hydrate yourself, you will not have that a correct amount of fluid to provide stomach acid.
Yes.
So you can kind of look at those areas, and then you can do a bit of a home test here. So there's one that's the bicarb test, where you use bicarbonate as the substrate, and there's another one where you can use HCl tablets to see, and it's essentially called a burn test, and you do the either the tablet or the bicarb, and then you measure how long it takes for you to burp afterwards, or for you to get a burning sensation if you do the HCl. Mm-hmm. And essentially, if you had high stomach acid levels already, adding in any more like bicarbonate or the HCl would immediately cause you to get burning or burping. But if it's very low, the time taken to have burning or burping would be a lot longer, because there's nothing in there to start with. Mm. So they're the kind of tests that I run from assessing that kind of thing for my clients.
I think we included those kind of basic tests that people can do themselves at home.
Yeah.
In our stomach blog, Sophia.
I think we did. I'm sure we did. Yes. If because not, we can.
Yeah, I'm sure it's in there, because I do share that blog quite a lot with people, and that test, the bicarb test and the HCl test, is definitely in there. Right, so more questions. Let's have a look.
More questions.
So, a lady here has suffered with PMT since the birth of one of her babies over 20 years ago. And her symptoms are very much like PMDD.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that you're going to explain what PMT is, what PMS is, and what PMDD is in a moment, Sophia, please.
Yeah.
Her GP put her on a common antidepressant drug, and she was on that for many years, but she managed to come off it. Good for her. But it has been a struggle with the symptoms. She's now perimenopausal, and she wants to go on holiday with her family, with her children. And she's just, scared that her symptoms will affect this very precious time with her family. So can you just explain what PMT means, what PMS means, and what PMDD is, please?
Yes, so we're probably more familiar with the PMS, which stands for premenstrual syndrome, or PMT, we might sometimes call it premenstrual tension, which includes all of the things like mood swings, feeling upset, anxious, irritable, sleeping issues, bloating, headaches, breast tenderness. So that's the more familiar kind of one that we know about. PMDD is a very severe form of PMS, which can cause many emotional and physical symptoms. So it's much more, stronger symptoms. So the mood swings won't just be kind of like, general mood swings. They will be like even suicidal thoughts, being anxious to the point that people can't leave their house. So they really are much more severe in someone who's got PMDD.
And
so
is there a test for PMDD, Sophia?
There isn't a test. You have to meet diagnostic criteria to be diagnosed with PMDD. So you have to tick, it's either 3 or 5 off the list of this criteria of the symptoms. And generally speaking, it needs to be symptoms that, are 1 to 2 weeks before the period starts. So essentially someone's struggling for half of the month in some cases, which is just not okay. And then usually it's relieved, as soon as menstruation starts, once the hormones have changed, 1 to 2 days after, they're like, oh my goodness, I feel like me again.
Yes.
And then it's often horrible for them because they're waiting for only the 2-week period where they feel okay for it to all start again after 2 weeks. And it's that horrible thing that comes down on them and descends like a ton of bricks. So often antidepressants are prescribed if someone is diagnosed with that. People don't want to go down that route. Then you can kind of go down a more functional route again, and looking at hormone levels. Some evidence suggests that there may be some imbalance in hormones in terms of estrogen being higher than the progesterone levels, so estrogen dominance, but also the way that estrogen and progesterone affect serotonin and GABA metabolism in the brain. So it's not just to do with hormones, it can be to do with those neurotransmitters as well, and how they respond to those fluctuating levels of hormones throughout the month.
Okay. It sounds truly awful. Especially, when you've got a family as well. So, but in your experience, natural therapy, supplements, diet can certainly help someone
definitely
with PMDD. Yes.
And what I'd recommend, as a very starting point to look into is definitely get your vitamin D levels checked, because that can, if not, I'm not saying it causes it, but it will make the symptoms of PMDD a whole lot worse.
Yes.
So getting your levels up to a really good level of, 70 plus, really important for someone who's got any anxiety or depression symptoms.
And again, this is something that you can test for people, can't you? If they contact you, you can kind of facilitate a vitamin D test for them. And interpret the results and recommend an appropriate, good quality supplement, vitamin D supplement.
Exactly, Yes,
which is very important.
Definitely. And then supporting the gut health as well. So some probiotics have been shown to improve anxiety and depression in people. So I would definitely consider that. And then some natural sort of anti-anxiety, antidepressive, depending if you're on any medication or not, natural remedies like things like, again, magnesium can be quite good for anxiety. Lemon balm, adaptogenic herbs like ashwagandha, rhodiola, very, very good for the stress response and anxiety.
Going back to what you said about probiotics, often when I recommend live bacteria for someone who has IBS, bloating, or irregular bowel movements, or if they're just wanting to support their immune system, especially, what we've gone through these past 15 months, then very often they'll come back to me and they'll say, great, Linda, bloating's gone. But I've also noticed that I don't get as anxious and my mood is lifted. which is lovely to hear, actually.
Amazing. Yeah, it just goes to show that gut brain link that is thankfully now being more accepted as an actual real thing, which we know it is, but it wasn't mainstream before. Just goes to show.
There's been a lot more research, hasn't there?
There has.
Link. Right, let's have another question, and this one is from Jennifer. Hi, Jennifer. Thanks for joining us this evening, and thanks for this fantastic question. So Jennifer's eczema has got much worse, and she also thinks she may have dermatitis herpetiformis. Can this be related to menopause?
I would say, I wonder, has it, oh no, it's got worse. So I wonder, was it there before the menopause, or has it just cropped up from, after you've started going through perimenopause or menopause? But yeah, again, going back to the liver, if our liver is overburdened and it hasn't been properly supported, and it is having to deal with lots of different hormonal imbalances and processing, then if the liver's backed up, if the bowels are also backed up, and you're constipated, you're reabsorbing toxins, more hormones, etc., eczema will get worse. So a lot of gut issues and liver issues come out in our skin because it's our body's largest detox organ. Therefore, if the liver's blocked up and it can't exit that way, if the bowels are blocked up and they can't exit that way, the skin is the next thing. So eczema, acne, dermatitis, those kind of things crop up a lot in my gut health clients.
And really, Sophia, you do want those toxins to exit by whichever route they can. Because you don't want them sitting there causing more serious disease. Now, I think that the type of dermatitis that Jennifer has mentioned, I'm not sure if that's the one that's connected to inflammatory bowel disease, or am I barking up the wrong tree?
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure. There's quite a few different types, aren't there?
I think there's a particular type of dermatitis that is connected to inflammatory bowel disease. So Jennifer, I don't know if you have Crohn's or colitis, but going back to what Sophia has said regarding your eczema, you really need to support your digestive, gut and liver health. There's no point in slapping creams, especially steroid creams, on your eczema, because you're just driving it deeper into the body. Those toxins need to come out. If you need help with that, Jennifer, just contact us on Messenger. But thank you for your question. That's a great question.
I think that it's just sprung to mind that whether it is that specific type of dermatitis, but from memory, it could be the one that's linked with celiac as opposed to IBD.
You're right. Yes, you're right. It is celiac. Yes.
Yeah. So
I knew it began with C.
Yeah. So have you been tested for celiac disease?
Yes.
And if it was an outdated test, then I would get an update one, because it's an autoimmune disease. So it's not to say that you can't develop it if you didn't have it when you were younger. You can develop it at any time. So it might be worth looking into that.
And with celiac disease, you tend to find that people have had the symptoms for years and years before they get tested. So, there's been a lot of damage done to the small intestine. Right, another question here. And I've had this one put to me before. I'm on HRT, but I've heard good reports about your 5-day charcoal cleanse that helps reduce trapped gas and bloating. I use HRT patches. Will the charcoal absorb my HRT? No, it won't. Not if you're on HRT patches, because HRT in the patches is transdermal. It goes through your skin and gets into your bloodstream that way, whereas charcoal capsules, you take them orally. So they're completely different pathways. So you're perfectly fine to carry out the 5-day charcoal cleanse, and you can find that on if you go onto the Just for Tummies website and you click on the charcoal product, you'll see at the bottom you can download the benefits of taking activated charcoal blog, and the cleanse, the protocol for the cleanse is in that blog. Right, let's have a look. Oh, someone's asked, and I'll just pop it up on the screen, Sophia. How much milk thistle would you recommend?
So it depends, what you're doing. If you're doing kind of a maintenance dose, then you can take as per the. Is yours twice a day, Linda? 2 a day, Linda?
Yes, 1 twice a day.
1 twice a day. If you're drinking, for example, and you know that you suffer with a hangover, for example, then taking a bit more to support your liver it can be a good idea. So 2 before you go out and 2 when you get back in. You can obviously get liquid ones as well, so that would depend how many drops it says on the bottle for that kind of thing. But for Linda's, I would go for the 2 a day on that.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for that question too, Caroline. Right, let's have a look. Right, so this one from Alicia. Can you just clarify that a reduced level of acid in the stomach causes reflux, please? Does stress reduce acid or decrease it?
Yeah.
Do you want to take this one, Sophia?
Well, you can if you'd like, Linda.
No, go for it.
Yeah.
Go for
it. So, generally people seemed to think that, in most cases, high levels of stomach acid was what caused acid reflux. Oftentimes that isn't the case. It's often that it's low stomach acid that's driving acid reflux. So the way that can work is the fact that if your stomach acid is reduced, you will not be but digesting the food properly. If the food is sitting around in the stomach, because the small intestine won't accept really large chunks of food, so the food will sit in your stomach putrefying until it's finally got small enough to be accepted into the small intestine. So under that putrefaction of the food in your stomach, it will then start to produce a lot of gases and things, and that can then end up being regurgitated. So that's how the low stomach acid can drive something like reflux, and stress will further reduce your stomach acid. It will suppress it even further.
And if that valve at the top of the stomach that separates the esophagus from the stomach, which is called a lower esophageal sphincter, or sometimes cardiac sphincter, if that's loose, then it's going to be much easier for acid-drenched food to pour out of the stomach and up the esophagus. And I know that smoking is one of the causes of a loose LOS. I don't know, other causes, Sophie, that you can bring to mind? I'm sure nutritional deficiencies as well.
Definitely, and magnesium is one of them, because magnesium is responsible for the muscle contraction, and those valves rely on muscles to keep them shut where they should be and open when they should be. So if you're low in magnesium, and again, stress depletes our magnesium levels, then if your valves are slightly open and you've got low stomach acid, food is putrefying, it's coming back up where it shouldn't be, you've got the perfect storm for acid reflux to occur.
Yes, and then on top of that, as we were talking about earlier today, if you've got someone that suffers with chronic bloating, so all 23 feet or so of their intestines are stretching, expanding due to excess gas and inflammation, that there's an awful lot of pressure being pushed upwards into the diaphragm, into the stomach, and that pressure can push the stomach up through the diaphragm.
Definitely.
So you lose that tight sphincter, don't you? So again, acid-drenched food can pour out, and it's it is amazing how once you begin to reduce that chronic bloating, that gas and that inflammation in the gut, once the intestines begin to shrink and drop, the pressure is taken off the diaphragm and the stomach, and in many cases the acid reflux simply resolves itself.
Definitely.
But not a lot of people know that.
No.
And that's what we're all about, aren't we, Sophia? We're all about
Definitely.
education and awareness, giving information to people so that they can go away and they can take better care of themselves.
Definitely. And just a really interesting fact here, well, that I read recently was if someone has got SIBO, and we're talking about that intra-abdominal pressure that can force the contents of the stomach up and, cause all that pressure build up.
Yes.
If someone's got SIBO and they drink 1 ounce of milk, I think it is, that can produce 5 litres of gas. So if you think about all that gas in the small intestine, it's no wonder people have got 1, pain, 2, bloating, and 3, reflux, because everything's pressing where it shouldn't be and forcing things where it shouldn't be. So that would be one of the root causes of something like reflux to look into, would be, have you got a SIBO infection?
And then if you've got a lazy bowel on top of that, and you suffer with constipation and all that's backing up in the large colon as well, well, it's a recipe for disaster. Let's have a look. Have we got time for one more quick question? And it's from Louise. Louise, thank you for joining us tonight. I hope you found this live useful, and I'm going to share your question so that it helps other women. Okay, so I'm in surgical menopause after having breast cancer. I'm now having IBS symptoms and having a terrible time. What can I do to help myself?
So, one, I would want to know if you're on any medications. Have you gone through chemotherapy? Because that obviously, depending on if you're currently in treatment, that can cause IBS symptoms in people. Or if you've gone through chemotherapy, it can cause symptoms in people, can really cause a damage to the gut lining.
Yes, the chemo.
Yeah,
I think the best thing with Louise is connect with Sophia Hill Nutrition on Facebook. That's right, isn't it, Sophia? Sophia Hill Nutrition on Facebook and Instagram. Sophia has a beautiful Instagram grid. She posts lots of fantastic recipes as well on her Instagram grid. So Louise, please connect with Sophia, and she will give you some tips and pointers how to resolve your IBS. And don't forget to go to the Just for Tummies website, the navigation bar at the top, where it states free advice, and download our IBS guide for free. And I think we're going to have to wind it up now, Sophia, because I did quickly. I know it. I did say an hour, and I want to try and stick to the timing this time, because in April I went way over time with my IBS talk. So thank you everyone for joining us this evening. I hope it's helped you. I hope it's answered some of your questions. We've had a lot of questions, I can see in the comments, so please just give us a few days to get back to you. You're also welcome to send us a message via Messenger or an email to feelgood@justfortummies.co.uk, and please connect with Sophia on her Facebook page and Instagram, Sophia Hill Nutrition. And I think our next talk, Sophia, we did think about doing one about low stomach acid, didn't we? And acid reflux and PPIs, and what people can do naturally with diet and supplements to to sort of reduce their acid reflux. So I think that will be the next one in July. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Sophia.
You're very welcome indeed. I'll just quickly say that it would be better if you do contact me to send me an email, because sometimes the messenger on Facebook goes into a funny inbox. So if you email me, it would probably be easier, and it's hello@sophiahillnutrition.com. So nice and easy, but if that's probably the best way to contact me.
Okay, Sophia. Yeah.
Or through you, Linda.
Oh yes, or through me, of course, and I will give you Sophia's email address, contact details. So thanks once again, everyone. Take care and have a good evening. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, Sophia.
Bye,
Bye. Bye.